My name is Dan. There is a little introduction in the booklet. You're welcome to read that. Sometimes there's a room monitor that introduces me, but I am here today and glad to have you here today too. When we started this morning, it was announced, the most popular groups and that they were split up over several sessions. And do want you to know that you are in the least popular group. And
story of my life.
So with that introduction, even the presenter that was going to be doing this is not here today. And I was asked not too long ago if I would fill in. So why is this the least popular group, especially with, the opening devotion and the keynote speech, why is grief not the most popular group when we consider that we press on to win the goal for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus?
I would say that most people don't want to think about grief, don't want to talk about it, but I would say that this class is probably one of the most important that we will have today, because we see so many people feel that God has turned their back on them when their loved one has died. They can't hear him talk to them, and so therefore they stop coming to church, and they're no longer part of the church family where they would get comfort. And so we should pay more attention to something like this than some of the others, because it is so important in our congregation, because we will all experience grief.
I could not have said it any better, and
Throw me under the bus like that.
You're in the right spot.
Well, you are wearing a Chicago Bears shirt, so you know all about grief.
well,
Maybe he thinks he's south of the border.
no, I think pressing toward the goal and the obstacles that we face in this life go hand in hand, and I would think it's a very good match, even though the presenter opted out weeks ago. Then the organization said, well, Dan, would you like to pick up this topic, because we feel it's important for our theme this week as well. And so, yes.
I have a question of everybody here. How many have suffered a loss within the last year? For myself, a volunteer, this month will be the 6th month since Jesus called my wife, because he loves her more than me. I didn't love her enough.
That's a good question. And I will be including it in our presentation today too. So just hold on, and I will get to our presentation shortly, okay? But yes, our topic today
You want to know anything
is grief.
about, first year they say don't do anything major.
Uh-huh.
And I'm thinking already, after 6 months, talking with others about doing things, but not doing them yet.
Mm-hmm.
Thinking, well, how much time do I have left?
Yeah.
I'm at 85 almost.
Well.
I always go a year or two ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Prepare. So,
Well,
yeah, okay.
let's. But you'll have an opportunity to respond to my asking the question, and we will get to that actually fairly shortly. A number of years ago, there was a book written, Good Grief. And bring that up because Granger Westberg published a book back in 1962, and he was at the University of Chicago. And it was a time when we hear quite a bit about holistic kind of treatment today. You know, medicine isn't just physical anymore. And he wrote this book, and he was one of the leaders in integrating some of the treatments that are involved in medicine that we call holistic, sometimes just spelled with a H, sometimes WH. And so one of the leaders, he wrote a book, Good Grief. And, I think originally that expression was maybe a euphemism. I think there's enough white hair in here in this room to know that in obedience to the commandment concerning using God's name in vain, there are certain euphemisms that might have been used, substituting for God's name. And instead of saying good God, good grief apparently was one expression going back to 19th century or something like that. We don't necessarily think of that, didn't necessarily think of, oh, that's a euphemism, and instead of using God's name, or you could look at it as, is this some kind of oxymoron, a coupling of two opposite words that might have a meaning as well? And I think Dr. Westberg was heading in that direction, that there are aspects of grief that are intended for our good. And we will pick up with that a little later in our presentation as well. And from there, for about 10 years, I was dealing with bereaved. And know what the basic meaning of that word bereaved is? What does it mean if you are bereaved? Robbed. Something very significant is taken from you. And we can be robbed in various different ways when something important is taken from us. And it's not necessarily a good feeling or a good result, being robbed. Maybe a show of hands, any of you been physically robbed? Something stolen from you? Maybe not, And so there's that aspect. Get robbed in various different ways during this life. I said, I've been working with bereaved for 10 years, that I have been working primarily with a hospice care, and the robbed people that I have been dealing with have lost a loved one or been robbed of their loved one. And what's not good about that, or being physically attacked and having things stolen from you? A lot of negative feelings and results that may result from that. Certainly have lost something very important to you in your life. If you were physically robbed, maybe you also lost security and a sense of safety. Oftentimes we think of grief and we think of the loss of a life close to us, and how there is a hole, a void in our lives as a result of such a loss, and the list goes on. just give some examples here. Have a little timeline here, and got a starting point. Joe was born into this world, and keeping with our theme here today of pressing on toward the goal, on the other side of the line, we've got that arrow that life in this world does come to an end, but it continues on. And so Joe's a man of God, and he has that eternity to look forward to. But Joe experienced losses in his life. And we think of losses by death, that his mother died when he was a toddler. And imagine what a hole that leaves in your life if you don't have a mother to raise you. And, we'd call it a dysfunctional home, but euphemistically speaking, talk about blended homes of mixed family. And, there were the deaths that Joe didn't really know either of his grandfathers ever, and by death or by separation. So various losses in his life. Was late in his life that perhaps his father died. But in the meantime, there were other losses other than death, that Joe became a victim of human trafficking as a teenager, and taken away from that dysfunctional home. Then there were other losses. He lost his position or job that he had worked hard for. Joe also faced wrongful charges and was incarcerated, and loss of various freedoms there. And so you get some samples of Joe's life. What about yourself? And at this point, I would like for you to think of some losses that you've experienced. Some of them may be very significant losses. Well, they're all significant, but they affect different aspects of our lives. So if you got a pencil or a pen and you want to put down a few things, if you didn't get one of the handouts when you came in, I've got a few up here, so raise your hand if you need one. But take a little time. Hopefully you can think of a loss in your life.
I just want to mention one, a loss of life.
Oh, okay. But yeah, we'll open it up, give everybody a minute or two to. Well, a little bit about my background as you're maybe jotting in a few things that I have had some additional educational background. Back in the time that I was going to the seminary, they had more candidates for ministry positions than they actually had places to send our pastors, and had the opportunity to be teaching at Wisconsin Lutheran College while I was at Wisconsin Lutheran Seminary, and decided, oh, I enjoy this teaching. And down in Milwaukee, there was University of Wisconsin, and they had a counseling program. And so I thought, well, that is going to be a helpful thing for me and hopefully for people that I serve. And so I got a degree in counseling at the University of Wisconsin in Milwaukee, and then took a call into full-time ministry from there. So, and so I'm relying a little bit on some of that education, and mentioned the last 10 years I was serving with a hospice, and so much of the presentation is pulling together a few things that have used in the last 10 years in a secular position that have found, thought might find helpful at a presentation like today. Anyway, if at this time anyone would like to share, first of all, any of you have a blank sheet where you didn't think of anything that you have lost during your life? Maybe raise your hand, otherwise, I'm figuring that you probably experienced different losses. Yes?
You said through losses of life, but you're talking about losses in life.
Okay.
You're talking of dysfunction and all the other bad stuff. Are we restricting to those who have experienced a loss of life?
No, in life,
so
yes.
A loss should be in.
Well, I've got in on my sheet, so.
Mine says loss of life, and that's why I came here.
Oh, okay, all right. But our losses are of different nature. It can be a loss. Normally, we think of loss of life and grief just dealing with death. But, and for many, that may be the most severe, whether it is loss of a loved one or maybe, even loss of one's own life too. But at this point, anyone care to share? Yep.
I've got a sister-in-law that's on hospice care. It's not going to be long for that time. I myself have a wife that has total kidney failure, and she's on dialysis all week. And I know that when you go on dialysis, statistics show that the average life expectancy is only 3 years. When you start, it could go up as far as 10 years, but only the Lord knows when He's going to take her away.
Yeah.
So part of grief, dealing with grief, is preparing yourself for those times. Both with me and my wife working together. I'm the one that actually administers. We do home dialysis with a machine, and we're doing it at home, and I'm putting needles in her and everything, and keeping her alive. If I had stopped that, it wouldn't be long before the Lord would take her home. So it's been a blessing in that way, that the Lord is kind of preparing me for that time, and realize that she's just going to fall asleep one day, and she'll be with the Lord.
Yeah.
The same thing, it could be that I may go before she even goes. So I think you need to, for grief purposes, you need to prepare yourself and know that the Lord is in control. all the time.
Yeah.
And he's gonna decide when it's our time or our wife's time in that. And we just have to know that she's gonna be in heaven, and one day I'll be there with her for a short time.
Yeah.
So, to help with grief sharing, if you prepare ahead of time, it makes things so much easier that instead of just seeing her earthly body there or whatever, no, it's her heavenly spirit that's in heaven, and you don't have to worry about it. It makes things so much easier and more acceptable to knowing that God said it's her time.
Yeah.
It's her time to go, or it's my time to go, or
Thank you. And, saddens all of us that you're experiencing what we would call anticipatory grief, that we sometimes begin grieving before the theft has taken place, and doesn't make preparation any easier. Personally, I'd rather just fall over dead and leave this world rather quickly, but that doesn't necessarily make it any easier for the people that are left behind either. But sometimes much of the grieving process takes place before the loss. And, but, the sadness we can share with one another.
Relative to that, would you care to comment based on your experience or studies already? Is loss that is prolonged and known and coming, as perhaps this gentleman just shared with his wife, versus a sudden loss, a unexpected loss? I mean, are those griefs, as you said, there's an anticipatory grief, because you know it's coming, you don't know when, because God's in charge. But then there's a sudden loss where it's out of the blue. Does that grieving differ significantly? How, or is one easier? Not that it could affect them, but
All grief is different. And went to a funeral a little over a month ago, and we were all relieved for Ruth. She had been in this world for 112 years. And for a couple of decades, she was praying to be with her husband and sister, and especially her Lord. And so gathering together with family and friends. The grieving pretty much was past in that sense, in that we were there truly to rejoice that her prayers were answered and she was with her Lord, and that's sort of one extreme. But you're right. If there is some time for preparation, oftentimes a hospice program is a way for us to prepare with our loved one for their departure, and that can be very helpful for all involved. Yeah. Bill?
To the question that was just asked, I've had I guess I'll call it blessing of getting to know both of those kinds of grief, both the anticipatory and sudden shock. And I will tell you that from my point of view, the anticipatory is easier. It gives you the chance to adjust to it piece by piece. It allows you to think through that life ahead of time, and if there's something that needs resolving, you have some resolution time. It lets you come to terms with it, and especially if you were given a window. I'll give you my father's example. My father was given 6 months to live, and I started to grieve immediately. And 6 months went by, and I stopped grieving and started rejoicing. And I got to rejoice for another year. And then Dad died, and it was actually pretty easy for me then at that point, because I'd already gone through a whole bunch of the process ahead of time. And I got to be with them more that way because I knew it was coming. I just lost, my wife's uncle just died. And one of my pieces in my heart that I feel bad about is I didn't get there to him. I said to my wife, this last month, we gotta get over there, we gotta get over there, yep, we'll do it soon. And it didn't happen, and he died, and I feel bad about that. And so there's different ways that it hits you. The other thing I'll say is that it depends on your relationship to that person in so many ways. So what was that person in your life? What roles did that person play? And how many different roles did that person have in your life? And I'm thinking of being the housekeeper, being the question answerer, being the husband, being the wife, being the friend, being the neighbor, they're just all kinds of different roles that people play. And how many of those roles did this person have in your life, and how many significant ways? The more significant ways, the more roles, the more you're gonna have pain. And then, how are the people that are left affected? And the more of those people that hurt bad, the more it's gonna be tough for you.
No. And once again, hear that each of our situations are going to be different, and sometimes that preparation can be helpful. Doesn't take away all of the grief, but the sudden death versus the anticipated death, it can make much of a difference. I'm gonna throw a couple of things out to you. Yes, American Jewish Swiss psychiatrist Elizabeth Kubler-Ross identified 5 stages of grief, and by stages, it doesn't mean these are clean steps or you finish up one before the other. Grief is a process, and might experience a loss early in life, and that affects you the rest of your life. But I bring these up because they are 5, might call them reactions or typical experiences of a loss, like a death. And, as an example, I was 18 years old at one time, if you can believe it, and was the first day of summer vacation, and friend and I were off on a fishing trip that we were both looking forward to, and cruising along on a 2-lane highway, and I was a little tired. I was back seat and things like that. Felt like I was dozing off a little bit, and next thing you know, extreme pain throughout my body, and my mouth tasted like blood, and my first reaction is, this is just a dream. It really didn't happen. But I opened my eyes and I see a bone protruding from my arm, and began to confirm that something had happened. And then you hear voices outside. There are 4 dead in this vehicle, and looks like the driver is deceased in this vehicle, but we have to get these 2 out of here because the car is sitting in a puddle of gasoline. And but my first reaction is, this really didn't happen. No, it's got to be a dream. And these things happen in our lives, sometimes unexpectedly and suddenly, and the ripples of something that happens to us like that can continue to exist throughout our lives. And so we experience these things. yes. Won't elaborate on anger. Most of it, I think, was directed toward myself. There was some toward God. And, well, if only I would have been dead instead of my friend who, to my knowledge, had no relationship with Jesus. And, he was the only child. His mother had 5 miscarriages before he was born, and I was the one that was still surviving. If only God had taken me instead. And there's the depression of our loss, our situation, and back in those days, didn't really get therapy and treatment. Yes, an alcoholic doctor tried to set my bones, and I had to have them reset again. But as far as therapy, other than fixing your bones, I'm still in some physical therapy as a result of that now. But emotional. I am thankful for spiritual care, my relationship with God, and then while I was in that African hospital, I did recall, especially important was a visitor from a local Lutheran church, not a Wells church, but he came and Father Falkenhauser came to visit me, and he was a POW in a British POW camp in Egypt, and was very appreciative of his words of comfort, reassuring me in my walk with the Lord during that time too. And I think it was probably, a couple decades later when I really came to acceptance of what had happened and the direction that God was taking me with my life. And now I look back on that as perhaps a Jonah experience where God redirected my life for the good. And that is something I hope that we experience with the various types of losses that we might have in our lives also. Any questions or comments at this point? There's a therapist that deals with grief and bereaved, Alan Wolfelt, and he's got a clinic out in Colorado, and he has come to the Appleton area pretty frequently. In my last 10 years as a grief counselor, have heard him a number of times, and gives us maybe 10 good pointers. He calls them the Bill of Rights for those mourning, and I'll just go through those fairly quickly. Have a right to experience your own unique grief, and so no two people grieve alike. I think that's important because oftentimes we like to give other people advice, and experience is that most often what we say to grieving people is something that is not helpful or might be better for us just to be present there for them and be there should they ask for help or support, or maybe do some things for them. But even finding appropriate scripture passages for people when they've just experienced a loss sometimes can be offensive to them. Yes?
Because we live in an instantaneous world too, many times grievers are forced or think they have to get over their grief quickly, move on. I know situations where women who have lost their husbands of many, many years have been asked, are you dating yet after 6 months? Grief can take a very long time to get over, and it's like you say, in stages. And so we have to allow people the length of time it takes for them to grieve. And then occasionally they will be ambushed by grief. In other words, having a great day and then be overwhelmed with tears that they don't even understand. And we have to understand that this isn't a quick process.
No, it's a process, and sometimes it's a lifelong process. And at a men's group, it does not surprise me. This is was the least popular topic because one of the healing things is talking about our losses, and generally men tend to keep some of those feelings in and are reluctant to get them out in a healthy way, and so but it is important that we express our our grief, and so it can be done with words, and that's very helpful. Speaking with men, we might grieve differently too. You know, if we're hands-on, I know of people who have built memorial benches or other ways to physically express their grief, and it's important to find out what's important for us and to make that work in the process.
I always like to look at Job and his faith and loss.
Yeah. And there, good example with Job, how worthless some of his friends and their advice was, So, have a right to feel a multitude of emotions. And anger came up in the last list. Anger isn't necessarily wrong. It's wrong if you express it in an improper way, but it is an honest feeling, an emotion that God has given to us, and it's okay to express it properly. That's where we usually are in trouble. As a sheriff's chaplain, remember being called by the sheriff's department to a site of a death, and when the son arrived on the scene and was in the deceased's office and talking with family members, and the deceased's Bible was out, and very comforting passages that he had highlighted, and I was sharing that, and all of a sudden there's a thud on the side of the house, and the son had gotten there, and he pounded his fist into the side of the house at the news of his father's death, and he was taken to the hospital with a broken hand. So there is the anger, but let's express it properly. Oh, did I? And so, but there are just a variety of different emotions, and I tend to deal with problems in my life by laughing about them a bit, and sometimes there is a place with death for some laughter as well as tears.
With the laughter part, so horrible joke I made about 10 minutes after my dad passed away a few years ago. I'm the guy that will do dark humor to deal with stuff, and it was on Halloween, and I just thought it would, because how I am, I thought my mom would have chuckled, and I said, Dad really took ghosting us to a whole new level now on Halloween. Mm-hmm. She was not a fan. Mm-hmm. But I thought it was a good one. It helped me for the initial start, to help deal with it.
Yeah. So, good example of some what would be inappropriate emotions but very appropriate for you at the time.
Yeah.
And recognizing that we all have different physical limits. Some of the things that we do in the mourning process, is taking off, and bereavement time will vary, but, Old Testament times, time of mourning would be 40 days. Maybe in Egypt it was 70 days, but you need some time off. You need to take care of yourself. We have funeral dinners for a reason, because oftentimes, there's no desire to eat when you've experienced a loss, and we take care of our bodies as well as our spirits. And there was a hint at what Alan Wolfelt calls the grief bursts, that out of the blue we can be overcome with emotions. Might be in the grocery store. Had a brother who died very unexpectedly, and was in control, but got to the funeral service, and it dawned on me then, wow, he's really dead, And so have that grief burst that you just have to let some of those flow. Nice to be around friends or others that understand what you're going through, but you can't avoid some of those unexpected reactions to your loss. Right to make use of ritual. I was in a secular position, but spoke with many funeral home directors, covered the years of COVID and things like that. And so there were a lot of families that weren't having the opportunity to have a funeral. And I think it's important to call them funerals. Hear a lot about celebrations of life and not being judgmental or anything like that, but funeral services, our order of service for burying our dead, include the sadness of the loss and the healing of the gospel message. And very important to recognize that we're not really celebrating somebody leaving the earth. Jesus wept at funerals, and we certainly can express our emotions and our loss that we experience by the separation that we have from these people that we have known, or whatever we might have lost. Right to make use of spirituality. Yes, I was in a secular position, but I could ask, what are your spiritual resources? And that could talk about our faith. And a lot of times it was in this part of the this part of Wisconsin. We've got a lot of Christians, and so wanted to reassure them of what our Christian faith tells us, and really let them know that their walk with God can be very helpful in this time. There is meaning, and this isn't something that comes necessarily real quickly when we've experienced a loss, but God intends all things for the good of those who love him and are called according to his purpose, and nothing wrong with asking God, well, can you give me meaning to what has taken place? And God does give us everything happens in our lives for a purpose on our way to heaven. We can still treasure the memories of our loved ones, of the times we had together, of, some of the great things that God provided during that time that now is over with. And point here is looking to our grief and really confronting it so that we can heal. If we just ignore it, there isn't healing there. It will continue to be there, but there is a process of healing that we can participate in. I mentioned an introduction to Joe, short for Joseph, and in the book of Genesis, we hear about Rachel, his mother, dying at a very young age, and the dysfunctional home that he was raised in. Granted, he was spoiled, but the hatred, anger of his brothers, throwing him in a pit, selling him to slave traders, and how he was able to continue to walk with the Lord, and that he experienced losses other than death, his job, his position. He helped people in prison, but they didn't necessarily remember him right away. He prepares for his father's death, and he prepares for his own death as well. And particularly from Genesis 50, brothers are concerned that the prime minister of Egypt could retaliate toward him or toward them, and instead Joseph assures them, verse 19, "Don't be afraid, am I in the place of God? You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good." So our losses can be intended for our good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives. And what a dramatic thing that God performed through his servant Joseph. And so God can take our losses and make them for his good and the good of others. So there is good news out of our grief experience. Maturity can result. We can become deeper persons because we've been down in the depths of despair and know what it's like. May not say, "Oh, I know exactly what your grief is like," because everybody's grief is different. So that's one of those things you don't necessarily want to say, but there may come a time when you say, "Well, I lost my spouse as well, or I lost my sibling as well, or I was robbed and I lost my job as well," and that can be helpful in having a bond with somebody. We come out of it stronger as we rely on God for what he has done in our lives. And most importantly, well, I spent years as a grief counselor. I continue to do that as part of ministry, and realizing that I can take my mess and use it to help others. So, we got a minute or so left.
One thing I advise people is, first of all, to get a copy of the sermon on paper, because many times when we sit in the funeral, we can't remember what was said. And so it's good to come back to that. I also recommend that they save the cards for a number of years, because the cards mean nothing to us when we're in the depths of our grief. And thirdly, if it's possible, I also recommend that they keep the sound of their loved one's voice, whether it's on a telephone or something like that, because I explained to them that they will lose the sound of their loved one's voice.
Yeah.
Maybe not the words they might use, but the way their voice sounded. And we also recommend you talk about remembrances, scrapbooks, to create for our grandchildren and great-grandchildren, to remind them of what maybe mom was like or dad was like in moments in their life that was important to them.
And don't be too quick to empty the closets and, strip the house or whatever of things that were important in your relationship, or the smell of the clothes. And, there's so many different sensory things that.
All of those are memories, and if you get rid of them too quick,
Yeah.
you may regret the fact that you give away
Yeah.
your memories.
Yeah.
Now when you want to look at them or think about
Yeah.
them, they're gone.
And, dad shouldn't have this in the house or anymore. Be careful of, allowing for somebody to grieve the way that it's important for them. Yeah. Anything else? No. Thank you. Oh,
30-second plug outside in the hallway is Christian Family Solutions. I'm on my third round of counseling, whether it was by myself or with my son, or now I'm with my wife. They have a lot of great and outstanding grief counselors.
yeah. And, everybody has an opportunity to specialize in one area or another, but, there is help out there, and don't hesitate to find it. A lot of times, funeral homes will have helpful things as well. So take advantage of what might be available. Another thing that hospice services did, they usually have bereavement counselors and support also. So, okay. Any other? Thank you much for your attention. God bless the rest of your day.